Hi everyone, it's Darlene. Welcome back for another card video. In today's card, I'm using some Altenew products. I have two sets of mini cubes. One is Shades of Purple, the other is Green Fields. And I have the Oriental Orchid set. I'm using the top three flowers here and then the sentiment on the side. This is a really great set. It's really pretty. And I've used the sentiments multiple times just by themselves. So I'm going to start by stamping the first flower, the top one in the set, with the black ink that comes in the Green Fields set. And I'm going to stamp it 5 times. These are the purples. I have the darkest at the top, and I'm going to take the bottom light ones, the bottom 2 light ones, and then the darkest one. And those are the 3 I'm going to use. So I'm going to take the very lightest one, and I'm going to ink it up and stamp it on all 5 of these flowers. So I'm kind of doing them assembly line format. And then my next color is called Lavender Fields. And I'm going to stamp that, and this is just my second, actually my third stamp if you count the outline as the first one. And then my final one is going to be the darkest one, which is the Midnight Violet. And these stamps are really super easy to line up. I don't have any trouble at all. And because it has that little thingy at the bottom that you can line up on all of the stamps. All right, now I'm moving on to the second flower from the top in the set. I'm going to stamp this again 5 times, and I'm going to go through the same sequence of steps. This one also has 4 steps. I'm using the same exact colors. And then I'm going to stamp the third flower down in the set 5 times and also go through the same steps with the same colors. All right, so now I have 15 flowers total, which should be plenty enough for me to create a pile of flowers. I don't have the coordinating die, so I'm just going to cut them out with a scissor. And it took me about 10 to 12 minutes to cut all these flowers. I wanted to add a little pop of color in the center of each one, so I took a Y15 Copic marker, and I'm just coloring the middle. I didn't have any issues with contamination of my tip. All right, now I have a folded card base at A2 size. What I'm going to do is I'm going to cut 3/8 of an inch from the side and 1/4 of an inch from the bottom. So I have a piece of A2 size cardstock that I'm going to show you so you can see that I cut 1/4 of an inch from the bottom where it opens up, and then 3/8 of an inch from the side, and I'm going to center it. So I'm going to have half of 3/8 on one side, half of 3/8 on the other, and then 1/4 at the bottom. So I have a little bit more space at the bottom. Now you could cut as much or as little as you want, and this is just how much the flowers are going to hang off the edges. I'm going to hand draw a little frame around the top and side edges with a Stampin' Up! Black marker. And I noticed as I was drawing here that my marker was fading, and so I had to go over some of it a little bit more, which is kind of unfortunate because it's really hard to draw this twice. Anyway, so it looked good enough. So here I have a guide that I'm going to use. It's just an A2 size. And I'm going to unfold my card, and I'm going to line the crease up, the folded crease, with the top of my A2 cardstock here. And then I'll center the rest of it. So just the left and the right should be centered, and then my crease is right at the top of that 4 1/4 by 5 1/2 inch sheet of paper. And this is just so that I don't go past the size of the envelope, so that my resulting card is actually an A2 size, a full A2 size. So I'm going to take all my flowers, I'm going to arrange them kind of in a pile that kind of goes up a little bit on the left-hand side. And you can see I'm pushing them to make sure that they don't go past this A2 guide that I have underneath my card base. I don't have my card base secured to this guide piece of cardstock, but you could if you wanted to. I'm just being really careful and gentle with my flowers to make sure that I don't move anything underneath. Now this is a piece of Eclipse masking tape, and it's actually been used multiple times, and that just goes to show you how sticky this stuff is. So what I'm going to do is I'm carefully going to place it on top of all the flowers that I just laid down, and I'm going to really press it to make sure that all of the flowers are adhering to my masking tape. And then I'm going to flip this over, and then I'll remove this A2 piece of cardstock that I was using as my guide because I don't need it anymore. It should be pretty easy to take off. And so now I have my masking tape with my flowers, and I'm going to draw a line on each side. And this is so that once I get some adhesive on these flowers, I can put my card base on top of them in the same exact location. So I'm going to mark the top of my card base and the sides. and that way I know exactly where to put it when I'm ready. So now I'm going to carefully remove the card base from my masking tape and the flowers, and it's sticking pretty well because I pressed it really hard to make sure that it was sticking very well, but you should be able to lift it off pretty easily. I'm sticking my fingers underneath to kind of push down any flowers that might pop up a little bit because there are layers of flowers, so some of them are sticking stronger than others. And there was one that really didn't get much masking tape, but it was not a big deal. I just sort of put it in that, you can see I pick it up here, and there's really not a lot of masking tape for it to stick to, and I probably don't even need this flower, it just kind of got stuck under there. But I'm just going to leave it, I'll just kind of center it in that hole there. Now the next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to put some Tombow Mono Multi Glue because it's a really strong glue, and you can see it's kind of coming out really fast for some reason, I don't know why. But I took a tissue, I felt like I had too much on there. You don't want it to seep out the sides because it is tacky glue once it dries. So I just sort of tapped it a couple of times with the tissue to remove some of that excess glue. And what I'm going to do is be careful to stay inside my pencil lines because I don't want any of that glue to show past that card base. And I found you can see here that I'm kind of dotting the flowers, and it was easier to apply with just some dots. All right, so now I'm going to take my card base and I'm going to do it face downward, and I'm going to go look for those pencil lines on the side and at the top where I marked it so I can place this exactly where it was. And once I get it lined up, I'm just going to press down, and I'm just going to let this sit and really kind of make sure that it's really sticking in all the different glue places that I put on. And then I flipped it over and I let it sit for a few minutes, and I let the glue dry a little bit because it'll be easier to take the masking tape off because your flowers will be glued pretty securely to the card base. So you can see how easily this is coming off. And then once you get your masking tape off, then you can kind of look for any flowers that didn't get enough glue on them because of the multiple layers. There was one down here on the side that only got a little tiny dot of glue because it was on top of two other flowers. So I just picked it up and I put some more glue on the back, and then I just placed it back where it was. And that's the only place I used the Tombow, and then the rest where there was a couple of spots that was lifting up, I just picked it up and I just stuck my Zig 2-way glue pen underneath and then pressed it down. And that's really all there is to it. So now I have these beautiful flowers sort of hanging off the edge of my card here, and I can lift it up and fold it. You can see that it's right out off the edge of both the front and the back, but it'll still fit in the envelope. Now I used the sentiment from the set, thank you, and I stamped it in the black ink from the green set. And the thing about the Altenew inks is they're very similar to the Hero Art Shadow inks and the Simon Says Stamp inks. So they don't stamp very crisp, so I don't normally use them for sentiments. So I kind of wished I had used a different one, but if you just wait a few minutes, it looks just fine. It kind of spreads out evenly. My final detail is to add a little bit of glossy accents to the center of each of these flowers. And that's it. So I'm going to show you, here's an envelope. You can see how it fits perfectly into the envelope because it's an A2 size when you include the flowers and the flowers hanging off the edge of the card. So something a little bit different, and I tried to keep most of the rest of the card plain to kind of highlight the flowers and the layout of them. So anyway, I hope you enjoyed that, and I will see you next time. Thanks for watching.